All right, get ready to dive deep because today we're tackling something you might not think is exciting, inventory analyst interviews.
Oh, interesting.
But we're going way beyond the usual surface level advice
Right, right.
and getting into what actually makes hiring managers go, "Whoa, this person really gets it."
I love that.
So you shared some excerpts from 20 inventory analyst interview questions and answers by Interview Prep.
Yeah,
And you're looking to just totally nail this interview, right, Eric?
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
mean, who isn't?
Yeah.
So one thing that really jumped out at me in those excerpts was the emphasis on experience with specific inventory management systems.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they even name drop some, like ABC inventory system and XYZ warehouse management software. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, experience is important, obviously, but why is it so crucial to know those specific systems?
Well, think of it this way. It's a signal to the hiring manager.
Okay.
It shows them you have the technical competence and adaptability. If you can talk the talk of these systems, it tells them you can quickly adapt to whatever system they're using.
So it's like a shorthand for saying I'm tech savvy.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And in today's world, companies rarely rely on just one system, so you need to be versatile.
Right, right. Be able to jump in anywhere.
Exactly.
Okay, so then there's this anecdote about a coding error that caused total chaos in a company's inventory.
Oh, yeah, a nightmare.
I mean, it sounds stressful just reading it, but what's the takeaway for someone going into an interview?
It all boils down to problem solving.
Okay.
It's one thing to say I'm a problem solver,
Yeah.
but you got to be able to show it, demonstrate it.
Right.
In that example, the analyst didn't just fix the error. They had to dig deep, find the root cause, and work with IT to implement a lasting solution.
Okay, so it's initiative.
Yes, initiative. That's what catches the hiring manager's eye.
So it's like a detective story.
Ooh, I like
You
that.
got this messed up inventory and you gotta find those clues.
Yeah, and it highlights another crucial skill, analytical thinking.
Right.
You need to analyze data, spot patterns, connect the dots, and then, really importantly, communicate your findings in a clear way.
Right. So it's not enough to just figure it out in your head. You got to be able to explain it to other people.
Exactly. Communication is key.
Okay, speaking of communication, the source material really emphasizes collaboration, especially with IT.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that so important for an inventory analyst? I mean, aren't they mostly dealing with numbers and spreadsheets?
Well, inventory management is not a solo sport.
Okay.
You're constantly interacting with different departments, IT, sales, purchasing, you name it.
Right, right.
So strong communication is key to make sure everyone's on the same page, the information's flowing smoothly.
Makes sense.
Otherwise, you're going to end up with, that coding error scenario all over again.
Right, right. Back to square one.
Exactly.
Okay, this is making me think about a time I totally overstocked my pantry. Maybe I need some inventory management skills in my own life.
Maybe a little bit.
But let's get into something that always trips me up. Inventory control methods.
Okay.
I'm talking periodic review, just in time, EOQ, it's a whole alphabet soup of acronyms.
I know they sound kind of intimidating, but honestly, they're not as complicated as they seem.
Okay.
Take JIT, for example, just in time.
Right.
It's all about getting inventory only when you need it, minimizing storage costs and waste.
So imagine a car manufacturer ordering just enough tires for that day's production.
Exactly. Instead of having a ton of tires just sitting in a warehouse, they get delivered right when they're needed.
Okay, but isn't that kind of risky? What if the supplier has a delay?
That's true. JIT relies on, tight coordination and reliable suppliers.
Right.
So yeah, there's a trade-off.
So it's not one size fits all.
Exactly.
Now, what about EOQ?
EOQ. That's all about finding the sweet spot between ordering costs and holding costs. A little more number crunching, but it can save you a lot of money in the long run.
So each method has pros and cons, and the right choice really depends on the company.
Exactly.
Okay.
A skilled inventory analyst can assess a company's situation.
Right.
Look at their size, their products, their cash flow, all of that, and recommend the best method.
All right, I'm starting to feel like I could actually hold my own in an inventory conversation, maybe.
I think you could.
But let's talk about something that seems almost impossible. Forecasting future inventory needs.
Okay.
Is that even realistic? It feels like looking into a crystal ball.
I know, it can feel like that, but it's not magic, it's data.
Okay.
You analyze past sales, consider customer feedback, factor in things like seasonality, promotions.
Right.
You even look at what your competitors are doing.
So you're saying a good analyst can kind of predict the future.
Well, They anticipate trends before they become a problem.
That reminds me of a story I heard about a company that makes Halloween costumes. They have to predict months in advance what the hot costume will be. Otherwise, they could lose a ton of
Take
sales.
a lot of pressure.
That's a lot of pressure, yeah. And they use specific tools like, moving average forecasting to smooth out fluctuations and see the trends,
Okay.
or building seasonality indices into their models.
So it's like data science meets like a little bit of intuition.
You got it.
Okay.
It's crunching the numbers, but also understanding the market.
Okay. Now there's another concept I wanted to touch on. Lean inventory management.
Okay.
But isn't all inventory management about being lean? Like who wants excess inventory just sitting around?
That's a good point, but lean takes it a step further.
Okay.
It's a philosophy that's all about minimizing waste at every single stage.
Got it.
Think about those fidget spinners that were everywhere a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
A company using lean principles would be super careful not to overstock those.
Right, because fads fade.
Exactly.
So it's like a balancing act.
Having enough inventory to meet demand, but not so much that you end up with a warehouse full of obsolete stuff.
Exactly.
Okay. And the candidate in our source material, they seem to be a lean pro. They mention things like streamlining processes, making data-driven decisions, always looking for ways to cut down on waste.
Yeah, it's the lean mindset in action.
Okay, so speaking of things that can go wrong, and trust me, I'm a pro at this, how do you handle those inevitable inventory discrepancies?
Oh, those are the worst.
When the numbers just don't add up
I know.
and you're just scratching your head.
Ugh, it's like, where did it go?
I'm picturing a lost and found bin for missing inventory.
Right.
But in a business, those discrepancies can be a huge problem. So how do you approach them systematically? It can't just be like a wild goose chase through the warehouse.
No, definitely not.
Okay.
The source material really stresses a systematic approach.
Okay.
It's like forensic investigation,
Mm.
You compare records super carefully, scrutinize every single transaction, looking for anything suspicious. Then you analyze trends. Like, are certain items always going missing? Is there a connection to specific suppliers?
Right.
Or maybe even certain times a year?
So it's detective work, but instead of dusting for fingerprints, you're sifting through spreadsheets and invoices?
Exactly. And the example in the source material, it highlights how important organization is and attention to detail.
Right, because if your records are a mess, it's like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
Exactly. So maintaining accurate records, following procedures,
Okay.
that's your foundation.
Okay, so speaking of procedures, I know this might sound a little dry,
Yeah.
but how important are those formal inventory policies and procedures? I mean, they're not the most, exciting thing to talk about, but I have a feeling they're super important for a smooth operation.
You're absolutely right. They may seem boring,
Yeah.
but those policies and procedures are like the backbone of a good inventory management system.
Okay.
They help with things like risk management, compliance, operational efficiency. It all stems from having clear procedures.
Yeah.
It's about making sure everyone's on the same page, minimizing errors, and making sure things run smoothly.
So it's like if you have a rule book for the inventory game,
Yes.
everyone knows how to play, and there are fewer chances of messing things up.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And you know what else shows commitment to those best practices? Certifications.
Oh, right.
Like the Certified Professional in Supply Management or the Certified Inventory and Warehouse Manager.
Okay.
These credentials show potential employers that you're serious about this, and you're up to date on all the standards.
So getting certified is like leveling up your inventory management skills.
I like that. It is.
All right, but enough with the theory. Let's get to a real-world success story.
Okay, love those.
The source material mentions a retail store that managed to do what seems impossible.
What's that?
Reducing inventory without hurting customer service. How'd they do that?
They had a secret weapon.
Yeah.
A skilled inventory analyst. This analyst took a data-driven approach. They analyzed sales trends to find those slow-moving items, the ones taking up space.
Oh, right.
And then they figured out how to increase the turnover of those items, maybe promotions, bundling, adjusting prices.
Right, so they had a strategy based on data.
Exactly. They didn't just randomly cut inventory.
Okay, so they probably used some of those forecasting techniques we talked about earlier.
You bet, like moving averages,
Yeah.
seasonality indices, to anticipate demand.
Right,
They probably also implemented real-time inventory tracking.
to keep an eye on everything.
Exactly, to always know what's selling and what's not.
Okay, it's all starting to click now.
Good.
But all this talk about data and systems and everything makes me wonder, how do you stay on top of it all? The inventory world seems to be constantly changing.
It is.
It's like trying to hit a moving target.
Yeah, that's where the importance of staying informed comes in.
Okay.
And the successful candidate in the source material is a great example. They didn't just rely on what they already knew, they were actively learning and evolving.
Okay, how so?
They engaged with their professional network, stayed up to date with industry publications, attended webinars and conferences, all that.
Wow, so they're like a sponge soaking up information.
Exactly.
Okay.
That proactive approach that sets them apart.
Right, they're not just showing up for the job, they're showing up for their career.
I love that.
Okay, but let's be real. Not every day is going to be smooth sailing in the world of inventory.
Sure.
How do you handle those like inevitable difficult situations? Because something tells me those spreadsheets don't always behave.
Oh, absolutely not. And that's where those soft skills we talked about, communication, collaboration, problem solving, become even more important.
Okay.
Like in the source material, there's a scenario where a candidate had to deal with a totally out of sync inventory system.
Oof, that sounds stressful.
It was a mess. But they didn't panic.
Okay.
They investigated the issue, collaborated with different departments to gather information, and then they implemented a solution.
So they were like a detective and a diplomat all in one.
Exactly. They used their soft skills and technical knowledge to navigate a really tough situation.
Okay, that's impressive.
It is.
But let's talk about something every company loves.
What's that?
Reducing inventory costs. Like, what's the magic formula there?
There's no magic formula, but there is a strategic approach.
Okay.
And our candidate from the source material, they really nail it.
How so?
They focus on data analysis, benchmarking, process improvement, and long-term sustainability.
So it's not just about cutting costs like crazy, it's about being smart and efficient.
Exactly.
You got it.
Okay, so it's all about like optimizing the whole process.
Yes.
But it's not all numbers and spreadsheets, right?
Uh-huh.
What about the human element?
That's a great point. And the source material talks about how important it is to develop training programs.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's a key leadership skill for an inventory analyst.
Okay.
Our candidate talks about tailoring programs to specific staff needs, aligning them with business processes.
Right, so it's not just like a generic training, it's customized.
Exactly.
And get this, they even mentioned using VR simulations for training.
Whoa, VR, that's wild. I never would have thought of that.
It's pretty cool, right? Makes learning more engaging and immersive.
So it's like trainees can virtually navigate a warehouse and like pick and pack orders and see the results of inventory errors.
It's the future of training.
That is really cool.
It is.
Okay, but with all these strategies and techniques, how do you know if your inventory management is actually good? How do you measure performance?
That's where those key performance indicators or KPIs come into play.
KPIs.
I think of them like your inventory scorecard.
Okay, I like
You
it.
got your inventory turnover rate, which tells you how quickly your inventory is selling.
Right, so the faster the better, generally.
Usually.
Yeah.
But again, it depends on the industry.
Right, context is everything.
Exactly.
Okay, what else is on this scorecard?
You've got your days supply on hand, which shows you how long your current inventory will last.
So you don't want to run out, but you don't want to have too much just sitting around. Okay, so those are kind of like your basic metrics.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, you also want to keep an eye on your stock out rate, which is basically how often you're running out of stuff.
Oof, that one's got to be low.
Ideally, yeah.
Right.
And then there's your safety stock levels. That's the buffer you have to protect against unexpected stuff,
Okay.
like, sudden demand surges or supply chain problems.
Makes sense, so you're prepared.
Right. You always got to be prepared.
And of course, there are tons of software programs that can track and analyze all this data for you.
Yeah, tons of them.
Okay, so it sounds like data analysis is like the core skill for an inventory analyst.
It really is.
But let's zoom out for a second and talk about setting long-term goals for an inventory team.
Okay.
It's kind of like creating a game plan for the whole season.
Exactly. You need a vision and a roadmap to get there.
Okay, so it's not just about day-to-day operations, it's about the big picture.
You got it.
And it sounds like our candidate in the source material, they really get that.
Yeah, they do.
They talk about setting ambitious goals, getting buy-in from the team, developing a clear plan to achieve those goals.
It's all about leadership, communication, and collaboration, all those things we keep talking about.
Okay, but let's be honest. Sometimes it feels like technology is taking over the world.
It really does.
So what about automated systems? Are robots going to replace inventory analysts completely?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
It is.
And the candidate we've been talking about, they actually address this head on.
Oh, okay.
They understand that Automation has tons of benefits like efficiency, accuracy, data processing power, all of that.
Right.
But they also acknowledge the downsides.
Okay.
Like the cost, how complex it is to implement, the risk of errors if it's not set up right.
So it's not just like robots versus humans.
Definitely not. It's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
It's about finding the right balance
Mm.
between human expertise and the power of technology.
Okay, so it's like a partnership.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to another trend that's changing things up, working with third-party logistics providers.
Right, 3PLs.
Yep. It's like outsourcing a key part of your inventory operation.
Okay, so what are the big things to consider when you're working with those external partners? It sounds like it adds a whole other layer of complexity.
It does, for sure. But there are a lot of benefits, too.
Okay.
The key is communication. You have to be really clear about your expectations.
Right.
Negotiation skills are crucial, too, because you're basically making a deal.
Got it.
And relationship building is really important. You want partners you can trust.
Yeah, makes sense.
And our candidate from the source material, they actually had a lot of success working with 3PLs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they managed contracts, coordinated deliveries, and built those strong relationships.
So they really get the whole partnership aspect.
Absolutely. They know it's not just about finding the cheapest provider, it's about finding the right fit.
Okay, so we've talked about managing systems, analyzing data, collaborating with teams, even outsourcing. But let's get back to the basics. The data itself.
Okay.
How do you make sure your data is accurate and up to date? Because if the data's messed up, none of those other strategies matter, right?
You're absolutely right. Data integrity is everything.
Okay.
And our candidate, they emphasize this too. They talk about doing regular audits, like double-checking your work to catch mistakes.
Okay, so it's all about being careful.
Yes.
Mhm.
Attention to detail is key.
Makes sense because inaccurate data can lead to all sorts of problems like overstocking, stockouts,
Hmm.
even financial
It's
errors.
disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, no one wants that.
Nope.
So regular audits are like your safety net.
Exactly.
What else can you do to keep that data clean?
Well, technology can help a lot.
Okay.
Software like ABC Inventory Management can automate a lot of those data entry tasks.
Right, so there's less room for human error.
Exactly. But it's not just about having the tools, it's about using them correctly.
Right, so set up the system right, train people how to use it.
Exactly. And have clear procedures for data entry and all that.
Okay, so it's like a combo of technology, processes, and good old-fashioned human diligence.
I like that. A good combo.
But even with the best systems, things can still go wrong, especially these days with all the supply chain issues and changing customer demands.
That's true.
It's like trying to ride a roller coaster blindfolded.
Right.
So how do you handle those unexpected curveballs?
That's where agility and adaptability come in.
Okay.
And actually, our candidate has a great story about just that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they had to deal with a sudden surge in demand. Totally unexpected.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they had to think fast, adjust their forecasts, talk to suppliers, prioritize orders. It was intense.
So they were thrown in the deep end.
They were,
Yeah.
but they used their skills, data analysis, communication, problem solving, all that, to navigate the situation.
So it's not just about knowing the answers, it's about being able to think on your feet.
Exactly. Being proactive, not reactive, anticipating problems, and making tough decisions under pressure.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see the big picture here. Inventory management is so much more than just keeping track of stuff. It's about data, systems, strategy, people skills. It's like being a problem solver, a communicator, a leader, even a little bit of a fortune teller.
You got it.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground already in this deep dive,
No, right.
but there's still so much more to explore.
So much.
So stay tuned for part 2, where we'll keep unpacking the secrets of successful inventory management and get into even more real-world examples.
Awesome. Can't wait.
See you there.
See ya.
All right, welcome back to the deep dive.
We're back.
We're continuing our exploration of inventory analyst interviews.
Yes.
And really uncovering those nuggets of wisdom that really make hiring managers take notice.
Those golden nuggets.
Exactly. So we're still digging into those excerpts you shared from 20 inventory analyst interview questions and answers by Interview Prep.
Good stuff.
All right, so in the last part, we talked about some real-world situations, where analysts had to think on their feet and solve problems. But let's shift gears for a sec.
Okay.
And imagine you're staring into your closet.
Okay.
You're convinced you have that perfect shirt, but it's gone, vanished.
Ooh, the mystery.
It's like a personal inventory mystery.
I know that feeling.
How how does that relate to what an inventory analyst faces, in their work?
That's a great analogy, actually.
Yeah.
We've all had that moment of like, I know it should be here,
Right.
but now imagine that frustration times 1,000.
Oh, wow.
And then add in the potential for like huge financial consequences.
Yikes.
That's what an inventory analyst faces
Mhm.
when they find those discrepancies between what's actually there and what the system says.
Okay, that just took the stress level way up.
Right.
But seriously, how do you approach those discrepancies in a systematic way? It can't just be like a wild goose chase, right?
Definitely not.
Okay.
It's all about being methodical.
Okay.
Think of it like a forensic investigation.
Right.
You start by comparing those records carefully,
Yeah.
like going over each transaction, looking for red flags.
Okay.
Then you look at trends. Are the same items always going missing? Is there a pattern with certain suppliers or certain times a year?
So you're looking for clues, basically.
Exactly.
So it's still detective work, but instead of like dusting for fingerprints, you're digging through spreadsheets.
I like that.
And the example in the source material, it talks about how important organization and attention to detail are.
Uh-huh.
Because if your records are a mess, it's like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
I'll never get it solved.
Exactly. So accurate records, clear procedures,
It's crucial.
that's your foundation.
Yes.
Okay, speaking of procedures, and I know this might sound a little dry,
Okay.
but how important are those formal inventory policies and procedures?
Super important, even though they don't sound very exciting.
Right, but I have a feeling they're like really essential for a well-run operation.
They are. Think about it.
Oh, yeah.
They help with risk management, compliance, operational efficiency. It all comes back to having clear procedures.
So it's like if you have a playbook for the whole inventory game,
Yes.
everyone knows the rules, and there's less room for error.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And you know what else shows you're serious about those best practices? Certifications.
Right, yeah, we talked about.
Those credentials, like the CPSM or the CIWM,
Okay,
they really show potential employers that you're committed to this field.
right, it's like a stamp of approval.
It is.
All right, but enough about the theory. Let's get to a real-world success story.
Ooh, I love those.
So the source material mentions this retail store. They managed to do something that seems impossible.
Okay, what'd they do?
They reduced inventory without hurting customer service.
Wow, how'd they pull that off?
They had a skilled inventory analyst, of course.
Of course.
This person was all about data-driven decisions. They analyzed sales trends, figured out which items were moving slowly, the ones just taking up space.
Right.
And then they found ways to increase the turnover, maybe promotions, bundling, price adjustments, all that.
So they had a plan, a strategy.
Exactly. It wasn't random.
Smart.
And I bet they used some of those forecasting techniques we talked about.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Moving averages, seasonality indices, all that good stuff.
Anticipate demand.
Exactly.
And probably real-time inventory tracking, too.
They keep an eye on everything, for sure.
Okay, so it's all coming together now. I'm starting to get it.
Awesome.
But all this talk about data, systems, everything changing so fast makes me wonder, how does an inventory analyst stay ahead of the curve?
It's a great question. It's a constantly evolving field.
It is. It's like trying to hit a moving target.
Right.
So how do you do it?
Well, the successful candidate from our source material, they really embody lifelong learning.
Okay, in what way?
They understand that learning doesn't stop once you get the job.
Right.
It's just the beginning. They're active in their professional network. They read industry publications. They go to webinars, conferences, all of that.
Wow, so they're constantly learning and growing.
Exactly. Always staying ahead of the curve.
So it's not just about being good at the job. It's about being like a student of the game.
I love that analogy.
Okay, so, we've talked about all the good stuff, the strategies, the successes, but let's be real, not every day is going to be smooth sailing.
True, true.
How do you handle those tough situations, those inevitable bumps in the road?
Well, that's where those soft skills come in.
Okay.
Communication, collaboration, problem solving, all those things.
Right, because spreadsheets can be temperamental, suppliers can have delays, things happen.
Oh, yeah, things definitely happen.
And in the source material, there's this one scenario where a candidate had to deal with a completely messed up inventory system.
Ooh, I remember that one.
Like completely out of sync.
A nightmare.
What did they do?
Well, they didn't panic. They took a deep breath, put on their detective hat, and investigated the issue systematically.
Okay.
They talked to IT, to the warehouse team, maybe even the sales team, gathering information from everyone.
So they're like gathering all the pieces of the puzzle.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then They came up with a plan of action.
So it's not just about fixing the problem, it's about figuring out why it happened in the first
You
place.
got it. And then preventing it from happening again.
Okay, so it's about being proactive.
Always proactive.
But let's talk about something every company loves to hear:
What's that?
reducing inventory costs.
Ah, yes, the Holy Grail.
What are, like, the key strategies there?
Our candidate, they had some great insights on this.
Okay.
They emphasized data analysis,
Uh,
understanding inventory turnover rates, identifying those slow-moving items, and figuring out where you might have too much stock.
right, so basically using data to make smart decisions.
Exactly. No more guessing games.
Okay, and they also mentioned benchmarking.
Oh, yeah, that's crucial.
So you're comparing your performance to other companies, right? To
Exactly.
see how you stack up.
Yep. See where you can improve.
So it's not just about doing your best, it's about, like, being the best.
Exactly. Got to stay competitive.
Okay, and what about those more creative solutions?
Oh, yeah, there are tons of those.
Like streamlining processes, negotiating with suppliers,
Yeah.
maybe even looking at automation.
All of that, it's about finding what works for your specific situation.
So there's no, like, one-size-fits-all solution.
Nope, it's all about customization.
Okay, but we can't forget about the people.
Oh, absolutely not. The human element is crucial.
Our candidate, they talk about developing training programs.
Yeah, empowering your team.
And tailoring those programs to each person's needs.
Exactly.
And they even mention using VR simulations.
The future of training.
It's mind-blowing.
I know, right? It's so cool.
Okay, so with all these strategies and techniques,
Yeah.
how do you actually measure if your inventory management is good?
That's where KPIs come back in.
The scorecard?
Exactly. They give you a clear picture of how things are going.
Okay, so remind me, what are some of the most important ones?
Well, you've got inventory turnover ratio
Mm-hmm.
that tells you how efficiently you're moving product.
Right.
Then there's days sales of inventory, or DSI,
DSI. Okay.
which tells you how long it takes to turn inventory into sales.
Okay, got it.
And then there's fill rate.
Fill rate, what's that?
That's the percentage of orders you're able to fulfill without any delays.
Okay, so you want that one to be high.
As high as possible, yeah.
Okay, and inventory accuracy rate.
Right, that one's about making sure your physical counts match your records.
Right, right. Keep those discrepancies in check.
Exactly.
That's the thing else.
Oh, yeah, inventory carrying cost. You want to keep those as low as possible.
Okay, makes sense.
And don't forget about customer order cycle time.
Oh, right. How long it takes to get that order out the door.
Exactly, and you want that to be quick.
So customers are happy.
Happy customers are key.
It sounds like a lot to keep track of. But thankfully, there's software that can help, right?
Oh, absolutely. Those programs can be lifesavers.
They can automate data analysis and all that.
Exactly, and give you a really clear picture of what's going on.
Okay, so it's like having a digital assistant for your inventory.
I like that. A digital assistant.
Okay, so let's zoom out again.
Okay.
Talk about setting those long-term goals for an inventory team.
The big picture.
Exactly, like creating a roadmap for success.
And our candidate, they really get this too.
Okay, how so?
They talk about aligning those goals with the company's overall strategy.
Right, so it's not just about inventory, it's about the whole business.
Exactly. It's got to all work together.
And they emphasize getting buy-in from the team. Everyone needs to be on board.
Absolutely. It's a team effort.
So it's all about leadership, communication, creating that shared vision.
You got it.
Okay, but let's be real. The world of inventory, it's unpredictable.
Oh, yeah.
Supply chains get disrupted, demand goes up and down. Sometimes those best-laid plans just fall apart.
It happens.
So how do you handle those unexpected curveballs?
That's where agility comes in.
Okay.
And adaptability and, maybe a little bit of creativity.
Right, thinking outside the box.
Exactly.
And our candidate, they actually have a great story about this.
Oh, yeah. What was it?
They had to deal with a sudden surge in demand, totally caught them off guard.
Oh, man. Stressful.
What did they do?
Well, they didn't freak out. They stayed calm, assessed the situation.
Okay.
They adjusted their forecasts, talked to suppliers, made some tough decisions about which orders to prioritize, all that.
So it's about staying calm under pressure
Yes.
and using your knowledge and experience to find solutions.
And your soft skills. Can't forget those.
Right. Communication, collaboration, all of that.
It all comes together.
Okay. I'm really starting to see what makes a great inventory analyst.
Me too.
It's so much more than just numbers and spreadsheets.
It really is.
We've covered a lot today,
We have.
but there's still more to learn.
Always more.
So stay tuned for part 3, where we'll wrap up this deep dive and uncover even more insights from our source material.
Can't wait.
See you there. Welcome back to the Dupe Dive. We're in the final stretch of our exploration of inventory analyst interviews.
It's been a journey.
I know, right? We've covered so much ground already: systems, data, problem solving, those crucial soft skills.
Hmm.
But what about like sharing that knowledge with others? The source material touches on developing training programs.
Right, it's like taking everything you know and passing it on.
Exactly, like paying it forward.
I like that.
And our candidate, they really stand out in this area.
How'd they do?
They don't just have the knowledge, they can actually teach it to others.
Hmm.
They talked about like tailoring those programs to each person's needs, making sure the content is relevant.
It's all about customization.
Right, and making sure it all aligns with the company's processes so it's not just like random information.
Exactly. It's got to be strategic.
Okay, but our candidate takes it even further, right? They mentioned using like VR simulations for training.
Oh, yeah, that's the future.
It's like inventory training meets the metaverse.
I love it.
So you could have new hires virtually navigating a warehouse, kicking and packing orders, and actually seeing the consequences of inventory errors.
That's a game changer.
Okay, but let's shift gears a bit and talk about measuring performance.
Okay.
How do you know if your inventory game is strong? What are the signs of success?
It all comes down to those KPIs, those key performance indicators.
Right, right, the inventory scorecard.
Exactly. They're like the vital signs of your inventory operation.
Okay, so what are some of the key metrics to keep an eye on?
Well, you've got inventory turnover ratio. That tells you how quickly you're moving product, how efficient you are with your working capital.
So the higher the better, generally.
Usually, yeah, but you always want to consider industry benchmarks and, what kind of business you're in.
Right, context matters.
Always.
Okay, what else?
There's growth margin return on investment, or GMROI.
GMROI. Okay.
That one tells you how profitable your inventory is.
Okay, so it's not just about speed, it's about making money.
Exactly. Got to make that profit.
What else should we be watching?
Well, there's the sell-through rate, which shows you what percentage of your inventory is actually selling.
Okay.
That's really helpful for seasonal items or anything with a limited shelf life.
Right, you don't want to be stuck with a bunch of stuff that's expired.
Exactly.
And then there's that inventory accuracy rate we talked about.
Oh, yeah, super important.
That's all about making sure your physical counts match your records.
Got to keep those discrepancies to a minimum.
Exactly, because those can cause all sorts of problems.
Oh, sure.
Okay, anything else we should add to our list?
Oh, yeah, customer order cycle time. How long it takes to get that order out the door.
Okay, so you want that to be fast.
Fast and efficient, yep.
So everyone's happy?
Exactly. Happy customers, happy business.
Wow, it's a lot to keep in mind.
It is. But luckily, there's software that can help, right?
Oh, right, those inventory management programs.
Those can be lifesavers. They automate so much of the data analysis.
So you can focus on the bigger picture.
Exactly.
Okay, but speaking of the bigger picture, let's talk about setting long-term goals for an inventory team.
Right. Those long-term goals.
It's about having a vision for the future.
And our candidate, they really get this.
Okay, what do they say?
Well, they talk about aligning those goals with the company's overall strategy, making sure everything's working together.
So inventory isn't just this like isolated thing, it's part of a bigger plan.
Exactly. It's all connected.
Okay. And they also emphasize the importance of getting the team on board.
Uh-huh. Everyone needs to be working towards the same goal.
So it's about leadership, communication, creating that shared vision.
It's all about teamwork.
Okay, but let's face it, sometimes things just don't go according to plan.
That's life, right?
Especially in inventory, supply chains can get disrupted, demand can change overnight. It can be pretty unpredictable.
It definitely can.
So how do you deal with those like unexpected curveballs?
Well, you got to be adaptable, flexible.
Right. Gotta roll with the
Balance.
punches.
Exactly. And our candidate, they have a great story about this.
Oh yeah, the one where they had to deal with that huge surge in demand.
That's the one.
They were totally caught off guard. What did they do?
They stayed calm, assessed the situation. They adjusted their forecast, talked to their suppliers, made some tough decisions about which orders to prioritize, all that.
So they used all their skills, their knowledge, their experience.
And their soft skills, super important in those situations.
Right. Communication, collaboration, all of that.
It all comes together when you're under pressure.
Okay, I think we've really uncovered some amazing insights today.
We have. It's been a great deep
I
dive.
know, right? So to all our listeners out there who are prepping for those inventory analyst interviews, Remember, it's not just about the technical stuff.
It's about the bigger picture.
Exactly. Show them you're passionate, you're eager to learn, and you can think strategically.
And don't be afraid to talk about those real-world experiences.
Right. Show them how you've used your skills to solve problems and get results.
And ask great questions. Show them you're curious and engaged.
Absolutely. Asking questions is a great way to stand out.
It shows you're thinking critically.
Okay, well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about today.
I thought so.
I'm feeling pretty confident they can go out there and ace those interviews.
I agree. They got this.
So to all our listeners, good luck.
Good luck.
And thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep those inventory skills sharp.